Oh, who was this episode brought to you with the support of Why It's Only our backers over at patreon.com/cinemaswirl. You'll have heard me mention it before, but $5 backers get instant access to every episode, 20 and counting, of Cinema Swill, a show where Kevin and I review bad movies. The latest episode is Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and oh boy, you don't want to miss that one. So head on over to patreon.com/cinemaswirl to find out more if that seems like your sort of thing. Alright, let's get swirling.
Cinema Swirl! Excuse me, I ordered sirloin and this is filet. It's episode number 68, coming to you from the steakhouse known as Hollywood, California, dining on the sumptuous sides and unnecessary bread rolls of all the Hollywood movies that my OTP and move over, Charlie. There's a new chaplain in Hollywood town. I'm talking about Sam Chaplin.
Okay. Here's some things. Number one, I did not understand the rhyme at the start, but I loved it. Number two, is this the first time we've referenced the fact that my surname is Chaplin and that's a movie thing?
I don't know, but I was just thinking,
it is.
68 episodes in, I'm just thinking, like, look, films is actually a smaller space than you'd realise, and it's actually a bit tight for turf here at the moment, so I'm thinking, look, he's long dead now. He's long cold.
You're right to say there was a bit of nepotism in me getting a film podcast, you know, it's like, it's who you know in the whole family, the Chaplin thing, it's like, we'll give him a film podcast, we'll get him involved.
It was between me and Kevin Costner, with an F, but, like, we went with me in the end, because it was just a good name, I guess, for Hollywood. But, yeah, here we are, Sam. We've had an interesting last few episodes.
Yes.
And after what felt like a lengthy, almost back-to-back-to-back romps, it felt like in the winter months and the start of this year, like the Catholic namesake of our show, we doth punished ourselves a bit too much, it feels like.
Look, I did sort of think at the start that this might be an off-mic discussion, but I don't think it is.
This is now a hot mic discussion.
Discussion, all right? Here we go.
The HMD coming at you, folks. Get ready.
Our recent run of episodes, while they've been great and we've been having great chats, I almost felt like some of them they had heavy moments. You know, Blue Velvet particularly, but also Falling Down, had some real heaviness to them. Snatch had heavy elements that we needed to discuss, and I thought my genius idea here was like, okay, we've nipped down that avenue for a bit, and that's great. What we're going to do is we're going to head back to classic swirl territory. These are franchises we haven't visited in a long time, and they're fan favourites. We're going to nip back in with the sequels. We're going to have an action adventure.
We're going to go back to the franchises, right?
Yeah, not Back to the Future as it turns out, but we're going to go back to the franchises.
And does that make us franchise players? I was wondering that.
It makes us franchisees in the way that, you know, some McDonald's don't participate in all the contests because they're a franchisee.
I aspire to be a franchise, so that's where I'm at the moment.
What's a franchise player?
I don't know. It's something that I imagine like LeBron James or John Cena or Mark Ruffalo, or, you know, someone's really got their shit together. Maybe I don't know. It strikes me as well, Sam. We should mention for the audience at home, such is the nature. I thought we were going to do a different movie. You know, I thought we were going to do another what I will now refer to as nails in the coffin of the Cinema Swirl formula. I thought I was all geared up for a 3-hour hardcore film watch, and it feels like you did a soft volley in to the romp territory. You know, because I know you, but like it felt like Cinema Swirl has been like taken over by like a Frank-like character recently, where it's like Con Air, no, falling down. You know.
Right. So what was happening was it was a nice car journey, but I got the sense that you were a bit sleepy, and I started to feel the vibration of those little things that are meant to remind you that, you know, it's kind of veering slightly off the tracks.
That's my impression of those.
You know, what are they called? Those the rumble strips.
I like to call them the crust of the road.
We were edging near to the road crust, We're still having a nice drive, okay? But I thought I'll just grab the wheel, pull us back a little bit into safe territory. Or so I thought. So we've had a vote over on facebook.com/Cinema Swirl.
That's facebook.com/Cinema Swirl.
For some sequels to some franchises that we've not visited in a while. Those were Back to the Future, which would have been part 3. Ghostbusters, which would have been Ghostbusters 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
And what we've settled on, by means of popular vote, this is what everyone was very excited about. And it was a spicy vote.
Weren't they?
Well,
it felt like there was a bit of an insurrection going on in some of the comments there now.
A lot of people voted. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom won. That got the majority of the votes. The other two were pretty close as well. It wasn't as far and away a victory for Indiana Jones as it has been for some previous votes, but it was very clear that was the winner. Now, I, as the social media, a young millennial dude with his finger on the pulse,
yeah, man,
I did look at some of the comments. You must remember that I had been trying to swerve us away from the heavy stuff. I mean, some of the comments were things like, all of these should be on Swill.
A lot of people down about these sequels, and I know individually, but all of them seem to have drawn ire from at least some part of our fan base.
So there were people saying, like, this one should be on Swill because it's shit, and then other people saying, no, you're wrong. This is the best movie ever.
You should be on Swill. They should review that comment, mate, yeah?
Every single one of them had people saying, this is terrible, shouldn't be on the Swirl. I actually created more controversy than if we'd have just done what we were going to go into. And I saw a comment which was like, oh, and Temple of Doom is, and I quote here, straight up racist. So I think there's going to be things that we need to address here, which I didn't anticipate. I didn't know.
And something I will say about it, right, is that that's a movie, having seen it from my childhood and into the adult years when Indiana Jones DVD box sets were on the shelves of many of my friends, that there were a litany of problems that people I watched this movie had with the movie long before we cared about substandard, really cliche stereotype portrayal of like Asian characters or whatever.
Right.
So there's a lot working. It's got some heavy lifting to do this movie. Where what have you done, Sam? What have you done?
I thought
you didn't even like Indiana Jones. Why'd you put it?
No.
You straight up did not like it. I remember you were very iffy on it.
I've listened back, which I seldom do. I listened back to the old episode.
Back?
I listened back. Hey, so that was over 5 years ago now, which is a strange thing to think about. I think that episode was the first episode that you mentioned Tiffin. Because you said, like, oh, Sam's not a Protestant, even though I keep bugging him about, having Tiffin. And I laughed and I went, Tiffin? Like I'd never heard that word before. And I was like, what a strange time 5 years ago was. What a completely different time when I was like, Tiffin? What
Stop making us nostalgic for 2015. It's not going to do anyone any good.
It was a completely different time.
It certainly was a time.
I wasn't blown away by the film. I was iffy about it. There's a Nazi monkey that I liked.
Yeah.
There was a man swishing a sword around and then getting shot in the face, which I liked.
It's something of an omen, and not to bury the lead when you actually watching the movie, but I have heard many eloquent arguments that not only is the one that we've already watched, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the best Indiana Jones.
Okay, yeah.
I've heard many people eloquently, I might add, argue that it's the only good Indiana Jones.
Sure.
And now Sam, obviously, he's not being unfair on this franchise ahead of time because you did have some experience with it. You saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I remember from that episode, it was Kate Blanchett?
Yeah.
And I quote, she was sexy in that movie. So
I think I may have said that. Yeah.
And 5 years later, we stand by what was said in that episode.
Yeah.
So
go back and listen to everything we've said 5 years ago. I stand by the lot of it. That's a challenge.
I stand exactly by what I said about the coalition government in 2015. Exactly what I said. So, Sam, before we get into any more of the movie, why don't we have a wee sniff on the mailbag?
That mailbag.
Potpourri. And what is that? It's not dried fruits. It's all nice themes and types of messages.
Yes. If you've got your own questions, you can send them in to cinemaswirl@gmail.com.
That's cinemaswirl@gmail.com.
Our first question here comes into that very same address, and this is from a returning question asker.
Oh, very nice. Nice to have you back.
Obi Joe.
Obi Joe.
I don't know if you'll remember when you were guessing what his email address might be, and you said obijoe@something.com. And I bleeped it out because I was scared that might be his actual email address, and we were just saying what his email address is. But Obi Joe has said, you don't have to bleep out my name this time. So that's fine. This is Obi Joe. In fact, people might not know that this was Obi Joe. I think I bleeped out the name in order to prevent the email thing from happening.
You know what, though, Sam? People might be expecting it now. So why will you just bleep out what I say next? Because it might just be a bit of fun anyway. Here, look at this. I know, right?
Simply unbroadcastable. Obi Joe writes, so we may never have introduced Obi Joe before, but this is Obi Joe, which is obijoe@hotmail.co.uk. I will not be bleeping that. It's not. Obi Joe writes, my head of year 11 was Alan Titchmarsh's sister. Okay, so now we're recalling the previous Dimmock connection that we had before, and Obi Joe says, I'm not sure if that's better or worse than the person's Titchmarsh connection from the last episode. Now, Alex Dimmock's connection was being first cousin once removed to Charlie Dimmock, who presented with Alan Titchmarsh Ground Force. Obi Joe, head of year 11, was Alan Titchmarsh's sister.
He's one step away, but they're kin, they're blood. That has to mean more than being a co-presenter.
That's the thing. So,
you know,
Alex is closer to Charlie Dimmock. That's indisputable. But who's closer to Titchmarsh? Obi Joe? Head of year 11. Head of year 11. Not teacher... It's for that specific person's class.
I was thinking in their form as well. The thing about it,
not the form tutor, head of year.
Now, if they were bowled as brass, mind, and they were part of the, oft-cited same faces that many principals and vice principals see, if that was the case, then I would say maybe, yeah, because they could have a little bit of like a Bart Simpson, Pepper Ann type of rapport with their head of year or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But if there's some kind of like, faceless mirage who just kind of head down and they don't cause any fuss, a non-exceptional person for better or for worse, it could be that year 11 head really doesn't mean anything, because I could tell you, Sam, having been...
So this is down to how Obi Joe has behaved as to whether this is...
Pretty much.
What kind of impression Obi Joe has made.
Now, but I don't want to start any sort of like a ranking or on the... I just like this to be a core of individuals who all have relations to Alan Titchmarsh, and we're all in it together, and we're in it here with you now. We're signal boosting this, and we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Alan Titchmarsh mainly. And how tall is he? I'm not actually. He's not a tall man. I don't.
No,
think.
I think he is actually titchy. I think he is a small man.
All the more reason for there to be more of us share the load and sparing the issue bit on the shoulder. Yeah.
I was recently talking about the Snatch episode with my dad, famously Sam Chaplin's dad, who we've not heard from for a while on the email. He's gone quiet.
Radio silence.
The character of Sam Chaplin's dad. I don't know if the person has lost the email password. Sorry, my dad has lost the email password. But I was kind of supposing, I wonder how alienating the whole Titchmarsh Dimmock chat is to our American and indeed non-UK/Ireland listeners.
Indeed, most of UK listeners as well.
Oh yeah, there is like an age limit here as to whether
and you also have to consider the people who just don't care, and they're always quite a large group, I found.
Yeah, Ground Force wasn't like always on. It's not some sort of institution that has always been on. Everyone will know these people, so even if you're in the UK, you might have no idea.
And if you combine the people who just don't care and those who simply don't care, that's quite a big number.
And those
as well.
Who have their hands in the air, it's the numbers are adding up. So, I mean, we've devoted a lot of time to that question, but I like the idea of making things narrow and inaccessible here on Cinema Swirl.
And it tells you a lot how cooperative this and a nice place this is now about this Alan Titchmarsh experiences that we're sharing, that I'm not going to say, come and have a go if you think you've got a better one and you think you're hard enough. I won't say that.
You won't say that, but cinemaswirl@gmail.com is the place to go.
Swirl@gmail.com, that it is.
So a quick one from the socials. This is a very quick one from the socials, and I like this from a kind of admin suggestion point of view, and we're always very appreciative of those. Ashley writes, have you guys thought about a Hitchcock swirl? Psycho, Rear Window, Vertigo, The Bird. Lots of good options for that. I've seen Psycho.
Have you now?
I haven't seen any of those other ones. And I think... It's been a while since we've gone black and white.
You know what it is? I'm actually quite sure that there was one, because sometimes we have a little bit of like there's 2 or 3 in the kind of nebulous cloud of potential episodes that we'll do next.
Yeah.
And I do remember that it was in said cloud. However, we had just done Citizen Kane and we were just about to do Wizard of Oz, and we thought, too much old shit.
Too much old shit clogging up the podcast.
Get all this dusty old shit out of here. It gets Con Air and Face Off. However, I would propose to you, Sam, for a spooky swirl this year that may actually be very, very much a different type of spooky swirl indeed.
Yes. Now.
Not to favour the vote, but my mum maintains that Birds is the scariest movie she's ever seen, and it still to this day remains an effective conversation dampener and stopper, where if you need to kind of like, you remember that movie The Birds? Oh, we got to hang up now. Like, you know, you can wind things down.
Your mum will like disengage.
I'm not saying I'm doing that all the time. I'm saying that I know it has that power with her, all right? And I do not
use
wield
it sparingly.
that power. I have not yet even... I think I yielded it once at Christmas dinner when I wanted to go get more food.
And so now you know.
Speaking of this, boys, how about that movie, The Boys?
Oh, wow.
Well, there's a scary movie.
Yeah.
And Joe's a huge fan of Hitchcock, so I've watched a shitload of that recently, and I would fucking love. Yes! Let's do that!
I've only watched Psycho because I had to for school. It's one of my things that I've had to do before. Okay, so, final question here. This comes in from Gavin. Thank you for all your questions so far into the usual places.
I must say, Sam, all these questions so far, the next ones, like almost like the sequels to the questions, they're just getting better and better, and I imagine this will translate into the movie du jour.
Yeah, if you do something again, it's better, isn't it? So I can't wait for the film du jour today. Gavin writes, "Hey guys, thanks for all the quality content and fun times you provided." Gavin, thank you.
Fucking question. That's a great question, man.
So thank you very much. That's the end of the mailbag. I have a question for you both. I recently binged Shark Tank on Netflix.
Yes!
Wonderful choice. Mr. Wonderful Choice. And wondered, if you had to pitch an actor to play a role in any movie, who would you pick and what movie? Do you think your pitch would get Mr. Wonderful's approval?
Ooh.
Gavin's suggestion here is Nick Cage as the Xenomorph from Alien.
My mind immediately went to Nick Cage as well, because since we've done them Nick Cage movies, Jesus, but he doesn't fit into every fucking question. It's great.
In everything. Same creature as the Xenomorph, but with just Nick Cage's face on all of them.
And he goes, rah, rah, and then a little Nick Cage comes and goes, wah.
The stuff of nightmares, I'm sure you'll agree, says Gavin. Thanks again. Now going to listen to the Swill episode of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which is available now on patreon.com/cinemaswell.
That's great, isn't it? Because we had a lot of fun with that as well, didn't we? We thought, hey, Star Wars. Sequel, Star Wars. When will we learn? When will we learn?
The sequel to a prequel, it's got to be good. To find out what we thought, head on over to the Patreon.
For our first ever prequel sequel, or Quill, as it's known, head over to patreon.com/cinemaswirl.
That's patreon.com/cinemaswirl. All right.
Sam Chaplin is a podcaster heading into the Shark Tank with an idea to change the history of filming.
Hi, Sharks. My name's Sam, and I'm from Nottingham, United Kingdom. Woo! Yay! And
Robin's done a little look.
I'm here to pitch to you an idea, and this is targeting the millennial market. It's an emerging market. It's very, you gotta target them.
Oh, sorry, it's just Mark Cuban here, and
hi, Mark.
I'm just looking at it here, and millennials, man, yeah. All right, we thank you for your service. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Mark. Thank you for that.
Well, hang on, no, I thank him for his. No, I thank him for his. I thank him for his service.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So my pitch to you today, I'm asking for all of your approval in exchange for a bit of my idea. This is an actor in a movie.
Dun.
Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum. You heard of him? I have.
Yeah.
We all like Jeff. The millennials like Jeff Goldblum. You know what the millennials have kind of moved past? James Bond.
Mr. Wonderful here, just What do you talk? I know Bond. I'm in Bond, and I know best of Bond.
Okay.
And who even are you? You're dead to me. You die. You've died.
Let me lay it out for you, okay?
Well, why don't I lay out your body at a wake because you've died and you're dead to me? Mark Cuban, oh, that's a bit harsh. I wouldn't have you dead at all, Sam, says now Irish Mark Cuban.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Wonderful, for your feedback. I'm going to lay it out for you, like me at a wake. Jeff Goldblum as James Bond in a reboot of the franchise, okay? We had Craig, he's on the way out. Goldblum Bond, you may think Sam. That sounds great. He's suave. He's handsome. He's American, which admittedly hasn't been part of it. Who's going to be the villain in these films? If we're targeting the millennial market, who's going to be our villain?
Well, I mean, who could it be? What are you talking about here?
Bill Murray. Okay.
Oh my! Hey, Sam. Love your idea here, man. I think it's great, and I know Bill myself actually. And let me tell you, he knows how to party. You ever hear about cleaning the dishes? Because this guy don't party like you or me. So I like what you're thinking with the villain there. Sam, what I see is this: I see a 10 franchise picture movie deal. And if I could get 10% of the online, I think that would really, at 10% for 50k, I think, let's bwam.
Now, I came into the tank with an upper limit of 5% on the online.
And how are you expecting to distribute this if not on the online?
I just feel like at this point in my career of telling people who should be in movies, I'm not willing to give away the control over that much of the online.
Let me cut in here, Sam, because, I've got experience here. I run QVC, I run Bed Bath & Beyond, and I think Jeff Goldblum, I could get him in stores.
I was for a second wondering who's talking, but you've helped me out there.
By Christmas, I think we could have Jeff Goldblum in stores as Bond. And I think I think you got to consider that, Sam. You got to lay up your options here now. Come on, deal time. The sharks don't hang around in the water.
Okay, well, one more thing, Sharks, but I can see you wanting me to bite here. You wanted me to agree to a deal.
What's this guy, Richard Dreyfuss over here?
What I would say is that, we've got Goldblum as Bond, Murray as the villain. Let's do a double-hander. Swap them round every other film, okay? All right? This is Johnny Lee Miller and this is Benedict Cumberbatch playing Frankenstein, all right? We just fucking swap it round every other one, okay? Bill Murray Bond, old Bond. What's that going to look like, okay? We just change it every time.
Sam, I could look at your business plan here, and I'm noting that in time for the 30th anniversary of Bond, you have earmarked Wes Anderson? Weezer. It is, sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Wes Anderson to direct the Bond franchise, and how do you see that playing out?
Well, I think if he worked closely alongside musical director Rivers Cuomo, I think we could really get a film. Goldblum, Cuomo, Anderson, Murray, cover all the bases there in terms of getting those millennials on board, and they're the ones with the complete lack of disposable income and no property.
Sam, I own sports teams and I want to own this.
Yeah,
I want to do business with you. I think we make this happen as soon as possible. What do you say we run it for like a $20 premium on a streaming service you're already signed up to? How does that sound?
How much of the online are you after, Mark?
I'm after 4.93.
My upper limit was 5. You got yourself a deal.
Oh, God. Once again, the sharks prevail.
Welcome to this Cinema Swirl, which is like kind of an improv show. Thank you so much for all your questions. I'm going to close up the mailbag.
Shoomp.
There we go.
Sam, we know that it's a sequel to Indiana Jones, a movie that you were not particularly keen on, and you've been given bad warnings in advance about its contents within.
I know very little else, though.
Do you know there's a Temple of Doom? What's Indy going to be doing?
Well, last time he was getting an arc. Right?
Okay.
Like, he was taking it from the Nazis, or the Nazis wanted it, and he got it back. It has been 5 years since I watched the first one. I still can't really remember what happened.
I'm not sure if you fully took in what happened the first time?
I don't know. He's an archaeologist / professor.
Okay.
Goes on adventures. Mm-hmm. He's put the Ark in a bunch of boxes at the end so that no one can get it and touch it and have their face explode.
Okay.
/ melt. The Nazis have been done in proper, like, wrecked, mate. Those Nazis.
Yeah. So you reckon no Nazis this time round?
Bollock's gone. Remember the villain, Bollock? Belloc, he's gone. Marion was a love interest.
Yeah, you know Marion?
Nazi monkey's dead.
Your pivotal character for
I can't remember enough of what happened to accurately predict what might happen going forward in the future.
I mean, was there anything about the original that you liked? I mean, you listen back to the episode, and I'm sure I probably asked you. Action, music, drama, it had a bit of comedy to it. Are you expecting some goofs?
I enjoyed some of the humour. I remember that. There was a very, very... I laughed so hard at the swishy sword, big swordy, like, thing, and then just shot in the face. Fucking pitch perfect joke right there.
Yeah.
Other jokes I liked. I wasn't, like, fully set on the character. I wasn't...
How about Harry himself, old Harry Ford? Would you reckon to him now as an actor? I mean, we've seen him in quite a few things now. We had Blade Runner. He's obviously been in Star Wars a whole bunch. This is our second outing with him here.
He definitely plays a type, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know if I fully love it.
Really?
Yeah. Look, I'm curious to see more of Indiana Jones. I'm curious to get back on board on this franchise that I've been so far removed from, because I want to catch up to where I got to with Indiana Jones 4 and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Okay,
you want to see the table that was set.
How did we get there?
You want to see exactly like how Mutt was going to pick up the torch, carry it on to the... Shia LaBeouf was ready, man. He could have done it.
Is his character going to be born at this point? No, probably it's still too early. I mean, it depends on how far we leap into the future as to whether Shia...
I don't know. Shia LaBeouf, very, very prolific child actor as well, so,
yeah. You know. I don't think he appears in any of the films that he's going. So, I don't know what to expect. It's the Temple of Doom. He's going to come there to, like... stop the doom.
There's some pretty big Indiana tropes kind of like about being in temples and things like that. I remember the start of the movie. Do you remember some of the stuff that happens?
He hates snakes.
Yeah.
Hates snakes.
Yeah.
You know, he got the gold thing, put something on top, rolled under a rock.
So what, expecting traps and things like that?
Did we have the big rolling rock last time?
Yeah, it's the start bit.
That was in there, so we have seen that. Maybe might have another one of those.
2 rocks this time, mate.
I'm getting it mixed up with Crash Bandicoot in my head.
Oh, that's really bad, because I was just about to ask you to hum the Indiana Jones theme, and I bet now it's going to be do 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 do. England.
Oh, scoring goals. Go England. Go
there we
Wembley.
Go. Actually, this is one of the cases where our singing of a football song, I think, has really helped.
Yeah,
I can help it stick in there.
Oh yeah. If it's footy, I remember it.
And you know that's why we very carefully picked words that fit the same number of notes, so we could remember it.
Yeah.
England's got three syllables, don't forget.
Off to Wembley, England, playing football, we will score some goals. So it's great music. I liked the music last time. I liked the humour. I was a bit iffy about some of the effects. Some of the action I didn't quite enjoy as much as I thought I would. But this has a big place in a lot of people's hearts, I think. That's why it got the votes.
Much in the comments or the votes or people, because I saw a few of the what I call the despair tweets where people, it's really great when you're doing social media, you love to get like a quote tweet or something like that because it shows people are engaging, they're spreading your content, and we always get the most action where someone's like, oh, for the love of God, this is going to win, please. And we got like 3 or 4 of those, which is really great for the numbers, you know, really help boost the vote. Did you see people who are going, this is going to be a romp, he's going to have a ruddy good time, Indiana Jones, or is it the people, I don't know, people like us watching movies they know you're not going to like? Is that a thing? I don't know.
I direct your attention to the entire Lord of the Rings franchise. People fucking love it. So maybe it's part of that. Maybe it's like he was iffy on Indiana Jones last time. Let's just do that again and see if if it's worse for him.
Okay. May go from iffy to squiffy, maybe. Who knows?
But I may have changed in 5 years. You know,
I think we've
I've
both
changed.
Grown and changed in 5 years.
It was a different time, Kevin. I was in my mid-20s. You know, it's different life I was living.
Now you're in your 20s.
Yeah, now I'm in my 20s. We were in the same room back then, and now
that's true.
Well, now we're not in the same room. Will that make a difference? Because another thing I'm just calling back to things I liked from listening to an episode of Cinema Swirl. But apparently, I leant over to you when there was an effect happening. So a stick coming out of the ground, and it just went in a straight line. And I said to you, "That's simply not good enough." And I do miss the days when, while watching the film, I could just lean over to you and be like, "Fuck's this."
That was always the funniest, because we had the rule of like we shouldn't talk during the movie, but
we should make our notes.
When something like that came out, it was like the tension, like in the room, like, does he actually like this movie? Am I about to sit down and then hear that? It's like,
so I had to break that by just being like, that is simply not good enough. And that's what I meant about the effects. Like, it was just a kind of a bit ropey. And this is Spielberg. Oh, is this still Spielberg? Is this still Lucas?
To the best of my knowledge,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about directing, but I know like executive producing, it's their baby still. Yeah,
I'm curious. People love this franchise, right? Or do they just love the first film?
I will say, and I'd love to hear from people about this. Absolutely dying to know. But I actually think out of all them franchises, from the 80s particularly, Back to the Future and this and Ghostbusters or whatever, I think it's the one that's fared the worst nostalgia wise. I feel that the people who like it are older and older, and I honestly, like, I don't think it's made it's hooks or an indent of any sort into the younger generation.
Right.
I don't know. I honestly don't.
No.
Because like when I was a teacher, I knew kids who like Ghostbusters, and they had like Ghostbusters
okay, I see what you're
shit.
saying. Yeah.
Even if it was the new movie or whatever, it was just what they got in the shop or whatever. But they're aware of Back to the Future because there's loads of like stuff about it. Even if Back to the Future isn't beloved in the same way it is by the old generation, Indiana Jones has been pretty much forgotten, I think, by that younger crowd.
Yeah, maybe. You don't see as much like merch and tat around Indiana Jones as you do the other two.
No, and it does kind of beg a belief that they didn't make another one still, because there was chat about that for a while.
Here's the thing for you. You wouldn't see an Indiana Jones t-shirt in Primark.
No.
You'd see a
exactly.
Ghostbusters.
You would.
You'd see a Back to the Future.
Would. And if they had one, they wouldn't even bother put a fake faded effect on it, Sam. That's how little they would treat the franchise with respect. But like, here's the thing.
Yeah.
New Bill and Ted's coming out. Everyone's fucking going bananas. And you and I are as well, because we just saw it recently. We had a fucking great ass time. And I could think of any of those other movies. The new Ghostbusters that's coming out, people are still jazzed for, in spite of everyone shitting on the one that came before it.
Yep.
If you give us anything new from that shit, Back to the Future musical, I don't think a new Indiana Jones anything could be announced and get any fucking sort of a beep from anyone. Like,
Doesn't get the same traction.
maybe Harrison Ford might come out of his money coma or whatever the fuck it is. Get in his plane and fucking crash into the next available site to film a bad movie.
I need to make it clear that those films that lost the vote, it's not to say we won't ever come back to those franchises, but it will take another 5 years.
5 years, baby.
Five whole years. Well, look, I can't say I'm optimistic.
I've not seen it since I'm like 20, so I honestly couldn't tell you. Like, and when I thought I was 20, I was like, it's not as good as the first one, and it's not as good as the third one. But I thought it was still like a good movie.
I feel like there's a reason why this won the vote, for good or for bad.
Well,
and I want to find out what that is, and I feel like I need to always go into these films with a somewhat open mind and think, I want to be entertained by this film and have a good time. That's what I want, and that's still what I want.
You did steer the car for this very reason.
This is my fault.
So you must be aware that movies may appear more rompish in the mirror than they are in real life.
With that in mind, Kevin.
Yeah, let's go do a cinema swirl. And we're back. Well, that was the first. I literally had to have Sam calm down because he was giddy before we started this. So, Sam, initial gut reactions to the in no way already poisoned Indiana Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right, so I'm not as goody now. My initial gut reaction, I'm going to try and do it for you. And I know,
Okay.
Right, okay. It's just like a kind of exasperated...
Oh, right, sorry, because it's often, folks may not know this because you maybe often edit it out, the initial gut reaction is often preceded by that very noise where it's like,
No, that's it.
and then you get it, like, but that's the actual whole shamoli there.
Now, sometimes I make that noise while preparing an initial gut reaction, but this is actually my initial...
That's the product, not the process. My God.
It's
Okay, it's a stupid question I have to ask you at the start. And it seems like a very obvious question.
Yeah.
But, like, had reading the comments and whatever, or just hearing the general spicy nature. And by the way, I feel like there was going to be an element to this no matter what we did, because it felt like all of the ones
in
had
the vote
these,
choices.
In the vote choices, that, like, a lot of people were like, oh, you're not going to have a good time. But were you already, like, was the ship already out to sail when someone's like, this is a straight up racist movie and you're not going to enjoy yourself, essentially? Like, were you able to put that to one side and give it a fair shake?
I think I think what's happened with the vote choices is definitely... I mean, have you heard of My Own Petard? Because, oh boy, have I been hoisted by it.
If you kids like My Chemical Romance, wait till you see My Chemical Petard.
The whole conceit of this show is like, oh, I don't know about films. And so in my mind, I was like, beloved franchises, sequels, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, right.
And all of these, I think, had some sort of reputation as being a bit shit or having stuff wrong with them. The fact that people were saying like this is, and again I quote, straight up racist, probably it was playing on my mind, but I don't think had that not been brought up I wouldn't have noticed. Like, it's
that's something I think is quite important here, because I don't think in any way out of a good conscience, because I don't like to surprise you with racism or anything like that, but I couldn't imagine anyone could watch this these days unless you were a real fucking chest thumping, fingers in your ears Indiana Jones fan who's stuck in Arrested Development, that you wouldn't kind of go, right, it's aged a bit badly, because even Spielberg and Lucas themselves have kind of shit on the movie a little bit. I don't know if you were aware of that they were kind of like disowned it a little bit, the weird middle racist child.
I tend to browse the wiki page post-watch to kind of get some bonus facts, and yeah, there was a kind of, neither of those lads are too hot on this one, but it's not the case that I was I was watching this and being like, oh, I'm having a great time, and then that comment crept into my mind. I was like, oh, I see how this could be perceived as bad. Like, it just was. Yeah.
It is what it is, and having occurred when it did, it remains as it was what it was as well.
Look, there were some positives. One I'm going to get into straight away is that this is a prequel.
Yes, this is an interesting one now, because this is not a sequel to a prequel, nor a prequel to a sequel. This is a sequel that exists in the same world as a prequel. So it's almost like Schrodinger's Quell, if you will.
This is a prequel to the previous film, but what that actually ends up meaning, it doesn't really shout about the fact that it is a prequel. It's just like, hey, this is happening earlier than where we were before. You don't really need to have seen or know anything about Indiana Jones, really. This is very much a standalone adventure with separate characters other than he's the only constant here. He's the only thing that you'll connect with. Other characters from that first film, I don't believe, come up at all.
No, they don't. I mean, the only time where characters from that movie come back is, well, I mean, in Crystal Skull, you've got Marion comes back, obviously. But in terms of our characters here, we get, like, you know, quite big performances, big characters. You've got Short Round and you've got Willie, the love interest, and the damsel in distress in this movie. And I do mean that quite literally in every sense.
Yeah.
There won't be much more of them, or if anything, I don't think there's any reference to them whatsoever in the, like, Mutt doesn't go, I wonder what Short Round's up to, like, no, there's never anything like that, like, you know.
But I think that's sort of a positive in that this is its own thing, and it just kind of can exist on its own, and you could watch this not really knowing about Indiana Jones. You shouldn't, but you could.
It's a positive in the sense that if you were in, like, a doctor's office and it wasn't good news, but it was localized, if you know what I'm saying.
It's that kind of positive, yeah.
As in, yeah, it can be removed. We're okay. It's scary and it's weird and it stands out, yes, but I'll tell you what, Sam.
Yeah.
I knew I was in for a bad time when my main memory, when I started it up and the indie music came in, was when that started up in the movie, my main thought not was of cracking whips and Kate Blanchett and hats and Shia LaBeouf, none of the good stuff.
No.
My immediate thought was watching the Indiana Jones DVD set that documentary feature length that came with the set, and then be like, indie memories, and then it's Steven Spielberg going like, I didn't think this was our best or best outing, really. I didn't think it was actually it stands out in a bad way is pretty much the gist of the theory on this. So
yeah,
I mean, Spielberg is usually a pretty positive guy. He's a man who saw a made-up shark threat and saw an opportunity, so he's a positive guy.
Another positive, it is funny that there is a character called Willie.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, because like,
oh no, there's a special joke coming up later about that, so don't you worry. Hey,
so how we start off is quite interesting, and I didn't hate this. Okay. Big musical starts.
Oh yeah, this was old Hollywood.
Old Hollywood. We get a man hitting a gong, a woman coming out of a dragon, singing "Anything Goes."
It was old Hollywood. You had all the beautiful set design, everyone dressed up really nice. You had white women vaguely dressed as an Asian character. It was old Hollywood. It was old Hollywood.
Look, it's probably not the most controversial thing we'll get
into. Because they go to the effort of singing it in, like, I'm not sure if it's Mandarin or Cantonese, but anything goes other than the titular line, in case you don't know the beat.
Yeah.
It is sung in another language. And that was pretty cool.
That was cool. We got dancing girls, sparkly outfits. This isn't what I was expecting. I assumed, I was watching this thinking, I thought this would be another adventure movie. Maybe we've come into a musical here and they've really shook up the formula. They didn't, as it turned out, but we're in Shanghai. I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. I quite like what they've done here. In fact, this whole opening sequence, so there's some lads who are watching this and they're very impressed with what's happening. And I was wondering, in that musical sequence with all the dancing, they kind of go almost backstage into these sequences where it's very old Hollywood, big production.
Yeah, like big sound stage where like the backdrop's being pulled back and there's a bigger space behind.
And that doesn't seem to exist in the same space as the actual reality of the film. There's like some bits that like they go dancing somewhere else for a bit and it kind of looks really cool and interesting. It's a nice title sequence and then they come out.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. Kind of interesting. Kind of something different.
You know what that might have been now? I've heard often talk about clapping along and feeling like a room without a roof and all that.
Yeah.
And maybe it was that the crack was so mighty there and the vibe was so good that it didn't feel so much as a room without a roof, but a room with a series of other rooms behind it that you can go back into, which seems like, honestly, a little bit more practical than a room without a roof, when you think about it.
And hey, Harrison Ford's here as Indiana Jones in his white tuxedo. And this all feels very Bond, doesn't it? This all feels a bit Bond. He's here in a tuxedo.
Also feels a little bit like Grim Fandango or Bogey from the Bogey movies. It was very, again, old Hollywood. And you have to remember with this, right? And I think it's something that needs to be said in the movie's defense. Because you could look at literally any part of this and go, this is an old, even the lads you're alluding to who are watching it, you could probably say that they're like your typical evil, random Asian baddies in a Hollywood movie. Yep. But they are trying to go for that pulp genre, they're trying to be that old 30s and 40s vibe. And I guess it has to be, held into account that they didn't think anyone would give a shit that they were being very authentic to that in the 80s.
It works in the same way that, the feel of, old school Bond works. It's this is kind of, exotic setting. We've got dancing girls. We've got a man in
We reckon tuxedo. This is what Asia is like, circa 1935.
He's being very suave. There's some diamonds. He needs the diamonds here.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Willie, the lead singer of this group of performers, who immediately cuts down Indiana Jones and says, when he's introduced as an eminent archaeologist, I thought archaeologists were all funny little men searching for their mommies. And Indy's like, it's mummies, actually, that we're
and there's that when he grabs her and pulls the knife on her. He's like, listen here, he's very aggressive, is El Indy here. He punches more than a few women in this scene, actually, and this she pointed out.
Yeah. So there's a bit of... this bit doesn't really matter. That's the cool thing about this whole setup to the story. This is to get our characters to somewhere else. But there's a diamond. There's an exchange that needs to go on. He's giving them something in exchange for a diamond.
But they've poisoned him!
They poisoned chasing him. They've pointed guns. They're passing back and forth diamonds and money on the little lazy Susan in the middle of the table. You know, the big spinny thing in the middle of a table.
I love that.
I
it's
really like that as a touch.
I would like most of my business to be conducted that way. And maybe HBO Max, if you want to do a new version of The Sopranos, where instead of getting it into the pocket, they just spin it around in a lazy Susan.
Yeah.
I think that I'd be up for that. I'd be up for that.
The old classic spy stuff. You've been poisoned. I've got the anecdote. Ha 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 ha. Big old bust up breaks out. You know, Indy's little mate who he has a guy who's the waiter who's helping out. This guy dies, he's introduced, and he's like,
yeah, seriously. He's like, no, my really interesting fully grown Chinese friend with a name who was an integral part of this movie. I didn't truly understand why he died, other than, like, it almost felt like it was played up for yucks, and this guy was like, I'm here to save you, and he's immediately dead.
Well, he gets to do this little speech where it's like, we've been on so many mysteries together, you and I, Indy, but now into the great unknown mystery, I must go first. I'm like, who the fuck are you? But I think that's to sort of say, this is Indiana Jones. He's been on loads of adventures already.
And he'll been on some since as well, he has been. That's the thing.
We know that as well.
Can I take a moment to talk about some of Willie's dialogue here?
Please.
Because it was at this moment in the movie that I wrote down that Willie is definitely no Marianne, and she's not that type of a character. And as someone who was playing Tomb Raider recently, I've obviously been given a lot of really strong female characters, right?
Sure, yeah.
You've not lived until you've played as Lara Croft, killing hundreds of men for no real reason while searching for archaeological trinkets. But Willie is so shit. And there's a reason for this, apparently. Here's some of her lines that she says in this bit. Oh no! Ah! My dress! Ooh, a diamond! Here's another line of dialogue from the movie as well. Duh, I'm a lady, written by the recently divorced George Lucas, who, and I'm fucking serious, wanted Indy's main girl in this to be a virginal young princess and had to be talked down into damsel in distress, I hate all women, bro, because he was in a dark place when this came out. So there you go.
The character of Willie never breaks away from the cliches you'd expect of damsel in distress. Oh my god, ah! You know, loud, screaming, kind of silly, and that's just like shrill woman.
She makes fucking Olive Oil look like Becky Lynch or something. It's ridiculous how shit she is. And also as well, further little bit about the actor is that Steven Spielberg said the only good thing about this movie, or the reason why he can't fully hate it, is that he met her on the set and she and him ended up becoming married.
Oh.
So there you go.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. So every cloud, every movie,
every cloud has a silver lining. I did enjoy the chaos of this early big bust-up fight scene, because fucking hell, Indiana Jones lobs a flaming kebab sword thing into one of these lads, who then shoots Willie, or like just narrowly misses. Big fight everywhere.
No one said holy shish, which I thought was kind of a loose line that was left on the cutting room floor. Would have been quite good. Hey, here's the time to ask it, because I figured you would have said as much in your initial gut reaction and then your supplementary positives section. But I was wondering, did the action, were you do you get into it, a little bit of fist pump? Because it's pretty much non-stop. This is like a 2-hour action sequence, this movie, with a few little breaths in between.
I really feel like this bit was my favourite, because we have the dancing girls rushing out while all of this stuff is going on, and then kind of rushing back in like, and then balloons falling down. We get balloons everywhere, diamonds and antidotes rolling around on the floor.
I was hoping they'd start playing Anything Goes again, just because I'm obsessed with that song. It's very good.
The little motif of it comes up. We get the dramatic music. We get a little bit of it in the background as this fight thing. I was like, okay, this is actually quite good fun. They managed to escape out of this room. Did you see what the club's called?
Yes, Club Obi-Wan.
Club Obi-Wan, which is, of course, a reference to Star Wars.
I've not heard of that club. I've had a few drinks in a Club Ben, but that's another story.
But our two lead characters here, they escape with the help of a little Chinese boy in a car, right?
Yep.
Short Round. Mm-hmm. I mean, how are we feeling about Short Round as a character, Kevin?
Okay, here's where I'm at with Short Round. Okay?
Sorry, is Short Round a reference to an American thing that I don't get?
I don't know.
It sounds like it's already a thing, doesn't it?
Short Round sounds like, you know what it is? I think it's like, is it like a smaller order of pancakes? Like you don't have a tall stack or a short round?
A Short Round, yeah.
Is that like saying that he's a little lad, like, you know?
Sounds like something you can eat, doesn't it? Or fire fire out of a gun.
There was a line in John P. Keane's seminal Irish play, The Field, where he says, "Give us 3 bottles of stout and some of them roundy biscuits." I don't know if that's the same thing.
I mean, if the character was called Roundy Biscuit, I think I would struggle to feel quite as negative about this film as I did if he was called Roundy Biscuit.
If anything, she's going to be a sexy Bond girl or something like that. Roundy Biscuit sounds a much far better use of that. So, okay, here's where I'm at with Short Round. I went into the movie with massive arms folded about and there was a lot of people who were like, fuck Short Round and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So I'm also aware that Short Round, because the actor who played him was also in The Goonies, he's a big part of people's childhoods and all that as well. And I would say one of the only bits of like, as in like, the heartwarming bit, which honestly is quite lacking in this movie, which I think is both a Spielberg and a Lucas staple, that feeling of, the only time I got that in this movie was later on when Short Round and Indy were like, "You're my best friend." Like, I really appreciate it. And when they were like that, I was like, okay. Now, do they make lots of kind of racially charged jokes or stereotypical jokes at his expense? Not that I could really see in my impervious gaze as a white lad watching this.
No.
But the thing about him is like the Apu defense, just because he's not saying hurtful shit, or it's not been like, look at him, he's a piece of shit, or he's weird or whatever. Even though they try and like incorporate him in, I just imagine a lot of kids got called Short Round back in the day, and that was the bullying stick, That's what I feel about it. I feel it's done damage, even though they meant well, much like Apu, even though obviously it's not been played by a white guy or anything like that.
Again, maybe naively, I sort of feel like their hearts were in the right place with that character. Okay, like I think there is a nice relationship between him and Indy. You get no real sense of where it comes from, other than a bit of backstory of, I think, was Short Round trying to rob him, and he like took him under his wing, and they just became friends.
He's an ally, kind of.
He's just one of his little mates.
If there was an Indiana Jones game, he'd be one of the 8 companions that you could pick from or whatever, pre-selected.
Yeah, and you know what? I enjoyed the kind of car chase shootout situation here with Short Round shunting a rickshaw. The man was running, and then he kind of went up in the air in the rickshaw. That was great. There's a very good, solid visual gag. And I thought these characters from the start, who were like, I thought they were going to be the main villains, but they're not.
Yeah. No.
But as Indiana Jones, Willie, and Short Round all board a cargo plane to get away with the help of a British man.
That was played by Dan Aykroyd, would you believe?
Oh, okay.
It's not a plane, it's actually a UFO filled with crystal skulls and vodka. You big fucking Aegis.
And that led to, of course, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So it all...
Just because we didn't do Ghostbusters 2 doesn't think Dan Aykroyd's not getting his weekly receipt,
So as they all get on this cargo plane to get away, and just as the villain guy is catching up, I think he's called Lao Che or
Lao
something
Shen,
like Lao Che.
And then he's like, "See you later, Lao Shen," and then he closes the door, and it's like Lao Shen Airlines.
Fuck me, that's good. That is funny.
I mean, there's some great visual gags, and I would say its reputation as being like kind of, it's really dark, and it's like, it's got this reputation of being like the dark, violent one, like this kind of, it stands out for that reason. But honestly, I think if you strip back, I think that's just a way that people can say, it's a bit racist, but we like it anyway. But like, I don't, even though it's got some like, human sacrifice and child labor stuff, there's still like as many, if not more, visual goofs.
Yeah.
As if like Nazis trying to become immortal is like somehow like, lighter a topic or something.
So they get on this plane. Indian Willie, they don't get along. He's calling her doll like that, and
doll.
She's like, I'm not like that. Nice shot of them flying and the lines getting drawn on the map in the back.
That's Indy. That's classic Indy right there.
So once that plane goes down, we'll talk about that a little bit, but once that plane goes down, I think we'd kind of reached peak fun for me in this movie.
Really?
I had most of my fun in like opening 10, 15 minutes.
It's a nice romp, like in the same way that the first bit of the last movie as well. I remember you were quite keen on that as well. It was a nice self-contained, like, it feels like you don't need Indiana Jones movies as much as you need like Indiana Jones like
short
mid-2000s YouTube videos or something, like 10 to 12 minute sections.
Yeah, I mean the stuff of the pilots on this plane dumping out all the fuel and then parachuting overboard while Willie and Indiana Jones are asleep.
And we've all been in that terrifying situation. We're in a plane, there's no pilots and there's no chickens. It's fucking scary, man.
And Short Round's like, Dr. Jones, no more parachutes, plane's going down. This is great action stuff, him getting in the cockpit and being like, I don't know how to fly a plane, do you? And Willie just doing that kind of, she's just like, oh no, and they jump out of a plane in a rubber dinghy, which doesn't make sense and shouldn't work. There's two instances here, and I don't mean to be like, this is a plot hole, it's a stupid adventure film, but there are two times when all of these characters should be dead, and this is like one of them, as they go out of a plane in a rubber dinghy and just land, and they're fine.
So basically, Sam, you and I have come to the conclusion that we refuse to engage this movie's shameful racist content simply because they should have already been dead by the time it happened.
Yeah, so it kind of is irrelevant now.
It kind of is a moot point.
And so they managed to actually land on a snowy mountain in a rubber dinghy, and then they're like snow rafting down the mountain at high speed, and Indy's like, oh, that wasn't so bad, was it? And then they plummet off a cliff.
Very James Bond when they were going down in that dinghy, it felt like.
Great stuff, genuinely good fun. They land in some rapids, they managed to get down. They should have died twice, but it's all a bit of fun. And now the actual plot of the film starts. That stuff at the beginning, that was just to get us here, and we're in India.
Uh-oh. Well, we're not in India, Sam, because the country of India was so annoyed with the depiction in the movie that they refused to let them film in India, so they filmed in Sri Lanka instead and just said it was India. And the movie didn't get...
We're in India.
And the movie didn't get a theatrical release in India at the time. And I think a large reason why it feels like the racial stuff didn't make any sort of a waves, other than the fact that it was the 80s, I guess, in America, in the fact that it was viewed as being like, oh, they just don't get over there in India. Sure, they don't understand over in India. They're being too sensitive. And it's like, well, there's a lot of things in here that if you're Indian, I mean, you might be pretty pissed off, I guess.
Yes. So an Indian man, an older man looking kind of old and mysterious, sort of stands there and silently directs them towards their village.
Oh, this fucking village. Jesus Christ. Resident Evil fucking village. It's so fucking bad. And yes, I know it was a country that had lots of problems in the 30s.
Yeah.
Least of all your lot. I'm pointing at the British one, yeah?
Hello.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
They make it out to be like they're like literally fucking savages rubbing sticks together in a big pile of shit. Like, it's so fucking bad.
Yeah, and they all kind of crowd around the little gang, and they're just like,
they're like zombies. They literally like zombies going, yeah. It's so gross.
They're not really portrayed in a kind of human way. They're not portrayed like people, is pretty much how it comes across. The villagers bring them food, even though all of the villagers are impoverished and starving, and Willie's just like, I'm not eating this disgusting food, I'm a singer. Look, the food does look yucky. There's some more food stuff we'll get into later on.
Oh, this food, though, particularly the bit they're offered in the village, had big Troll 2 vibes to it. Like, it was the green ooze, you know, guy giving it to her was fucking stoned. Like,
and, our main plot point here is explained to us, like the main kind of, not MacGuffin, but like the thing that we're chasing after here. The people from the Palace of Panko took a sacred stone from the shrine from this village. Evil forces, darkness, the rivers then dried up, the village was destroyed.
Bloody dark light, fucking hate that.
And those villagers believe that because, I think they were praying to Shiva, Indy and his mates fell out of the sky, and they've been brought here to come and save the day and get that special magic stone back.
You know what? It's been a time in movies, but I don't know if I've seen as much Hindu phobia in my times, because it was a subtle thing, and there was only someone messaged me and saying like, I find this element to be a bit egregious or whatever.
Yeah.
And just the casual like Hinduism is kind of treated as this like almost like a savagery type of like simplistic, we worship this god. And also as well, it's fucking Hindu. Would you get, if they're so Hindu, get a fucking couple of cows in there maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Like, literally one in the whole movie? Are you sure this is Indy? Come on.
I mean, when that story has been relayed to them, Indy literally brushes it off to Short Round and says, oh, don't worry, Shorty, it's just a ghost story. And that's a line from a character who has opinions and views, but it does also speak to how I think this religion is depicted, like a whole group of people.
If you're playing a game like The Secret of Monkey Island or something something like that. And they go to a random island in it, and it's like, look, these are these savage tribal people. They believe in all sorts of crazy things like cannibalism. The fact that they're doing that, but with an actual religion, like, you know, you could say that, oh, it's bad or whatever if you're having your random faceless tribals that were just making up a religion or whatever.
Yeah.
But this, you gotta admit, this is worse. Like, there's more than a couple of Hindus in the world, and they watch movies, you know?
Yes, I think you hit on something there, that you could just make up a group of people who...
Make up a country. If you said you were anywhere, the fact that we're Indians and they talk about Vishnu and Shiva, and it's, now lads, here we go.
But also, Kevin, because we're in India, our characters get to ride on elephants, which...
No!
Hey!
I can't ride an elephant. I'm a lady. I broke my nail. I need to apply moisture. Give it they don't give it a rest.
Kevin, she's got on the elephant the wrong way round, so she's going bum first as she's walking along. That's hilarious. She says, oh, I need to call my agent when she's on this elephant facing the wrong way. Okay, yeah.
She is the only woman as well, right? She's the only woman. There's no other woman in this movie who has a line of dialogue, is there? And singing doesn't count at the start.
Not in English. I think, like, some of the generic villagers might say some things and be women, but in terms of a character who has fucking dialogue in this film, I think it is just her.
So we just did episode 2 Star Wars on the Patreon for Cinema Swill, and obviously a big sticking point in that was George Lucas as a writer. And I asked, hypothetically, in that, when we were watching the romance scenes, I asked, who hurt you, George? And it's obvious his ex-wife hurt him because he feels very hurt here. Can you imagine the mindset and like what happened in George Lucas and his views with romance and women that took us from here to the soft sand of Naboo?
I don't know, but this feels like he was responsible for the story, wasn't he? And like, I don't know who like wrote this or who came up with all these decisions. There is something about the fact that Willie is glamorous star being a bit of a diva that seems to suggest that, like, George Lucas has been in Hollywood and has some views about some certain people.
Yeah, and also as well, do you know when he divorced her? It literally, she attempted to file for divorce like a year into the production of Return of the Jedi or whatever, and her reasons were that he was never around, like, he just was a workaholic, and he would never even speak with her, and he was emotionally shut down or whatever, and he begged her not to split up with her because he thought it would hamper the production of Jedi and also be bad PR. So literally, like, the day that the movie got released, the day after, she's like, yeah, fucking divorce me finally, please.
I don't know. Like, I had hope at this point that Willie as a character... Well, I didn't have hope. I started to get pessimistic that this was all she would be. Is just shrieking comic relief. It
is all she is.
And it is.
She never, not at a single point, her level, I mean, she does some things against her wishes and better judgment that help people later on, but like, it's never as if she has a moment, like a prideful moment or a moment where you think of her anything other than like as a hindrance to them, really. And it was men behaving badly. Dirty George and Spielberg in their one bedroom flat making their dirty movie. Hey, why we have that annoying woman in it? Before Nuts magazine, there was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
And I'm reminded that I'm not too hot on Indiana Jones as a character. You know, his whole vibe of, like, you know, classic, I guess classically kind of handsome, suave, whatever his thing is. You know, Willie's saying like, oh, what big birds there up in the sky. Those aren't big birds, sweetheart. They're giant vampire bats. And he said, that's not a good voice, but he sounds like Troy McClure or something. It's got that kind of like Hollywood.
The only reason he gets away with it, like if you wrote down Indy's lines, it could literally be Troy McClure. You're dead right. And I think it's just because Harrison is gruff and it's all like you know, he's got that kind of angry dad, disappointed. Also as well, that bit where she's like, oh, birds, and then he's like, no, they're bats. I think I've told the story here before on this podcast. That legitimately happens to me in real life.
You saw some birds, but they were bats.
Yeah, I was in China, and when I was working with moon bears, and someone who I was with, they looked up and they said, oh, look at that, they were a volunteer and they didn't know a whole hell of a lot, like, you know, and they're like, oh, look, check it out there, there's some birds. And I go, no, those are vampire bats. And they went, And we were up on a roof and they like ran down the fire escape super quickly. And now I sit back and I wonder, was that just like the world's best reference? Where they're like, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll ask him that. And then when he responds as the reference, I'll run away screaming. Like,
do you think they were like really in on the bit and trying, like committing fully to a joke here? And,
they're obviously a big willy head, you know, that they're like, sorry, no, that came out wrong. They're a willy file. There we go.
Much better. Willie falls in the water off an elephant, and
they all point and laugh at her.
Very funny.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hang on. No. Hang on.
Yeah.
This was the thing. This from earlier. I said there'd be one of these. Willie is wet. Wet Willie. Sorry, wet Willie.
We get a bit of wet Willie here. So Willie has a run-in with a bat, which is genuinely terrifying for her. She's freaking out, running around screaming because she's encountered this giant fucking vampire bat. And the lads, Indy and Shorty, are just playing cards and complaining about the noise of a woman screaming.
Well, she's got valid concerns, such as, I'm a lady, I hate this.
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact for you. Short Round. 2 facts about Short Round. Firstly, he wasn't the person auditioning for the role. It was his brother. And then he was like, you just come anyway. And can you imagine that? Like, if you were auditioning for something, like, that brother over there, it's for fuck's sake. Sure, Short Round's brother was very happy with that development. Secondly, as well, when he was working on set, he used to ring his mother and would refer to Lucas and Spielberg as Beard 1 and Beard 2, respectively.
Fucking hell, that is funny.
I like to imagine Beard 1 and Beard 2 like a couple of bananas in pajamas sitting around writing Willie's dialogue. What would she say, Beard? I don't know, Beard. She'd probably say, I hate this, I'm a woman, I'm a lady, I hate everything, or some shit.
I'm not sure if he meant it, but that's such a solid dunk to be like,
it is
with Beard 1 and Beard 2. Hey, a criticism I had of Indiana Jones last time, of his characterization, was that he, and I think you agreed with this too, or you mentioned it, that he doesn't ever seem visibly upset by snakes, other than saying, I don't like snakes. His whole thing about being scared of snakes was just him saying, I'm scared of snakes. Whereas this time,
yes,
he sees a snake, and he does look actually visibly scared. So that's a nice touch.
You know what it was? I thought, and this is me maybe giving him too much credit, what I thought, and I thought it was good, was that because Willie was complaining so much about the jungle, she was like running around going like, there's a thing over here, and like, there's a thing here. She hated everything, and Indy's like, come on, sweetheart, it's a jungle, what do you expect? And then when he sees a snake, which he's scared of, he's too scared or embarrassed to say, I'm scared of snakes, like he always does, because he doesn't want to say it in front of her, so he just tries and keeps it in, and he goes a bit instead.
So it's a little bit of fragile masculinity stuff coming out here. Is this actually a clever send-up of those kinds of characters, or are we meant to think that Indy's the cool dude and he's our guy?
Well, actually, Beard 1, Beard 2, we've gotten some feedback from the audience testing here in 1985, and it turns out a man admitting he's afraid of anything is tested as being gay, so unfortunately...
Get it out of there.
Just get it out of there. He can acknowledge it with his eyes, but he's not allowed to say it.
Yeah. Indy's found an old statue thing.
Oh, it's a spooky old statue. It's all covered in jam.
Spooky old statue thing, and while he's looking at it, their elephants have all been nicked, and there's bats flying everywhere.
Well, the elephants were nicked. I think what it was is that their guides and whatnot, I think they were scared off because they were locals by the bad energy or whatever from it, and they're like, and they took the olifants with them.
I just thought they got kind of whatever the equivalent of carjacked is, but for elephants. They got elephant jacked.
Ollie jacked, maybe, you know?
I've seen some jacked elephants. Right?
Or we could say hyraxed instead of jacked, because hyrax is closely related to an elephant. There you go.
Zoology for us there.
If you ever wanted to know what Hollywood celebrity is trapped in the soul of every Hyrax, it's Patton Oswalt. There you go. You should look one up right now. It's good. Hyrax. He just has the eyes.
He does, doesn't he?
He does. He has the quiet confidence of Patton Oswalt.
Oh, well, that's nice. There we go. Just a little treat for listeners at home.
A little treat for listeners at home.
So we get to Panko Palace.
I'm sorry, I got to say, Panko Palace sounds like a really crunchy, great place, and I want to go there.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to go to Panko Palace.
Oh, yes, please.
We meet the Prime Minister, I think, the leader of the thing. It's all very charming.
This bit here. Oh, my God. Fuck Fuck me.
The posh British bloke they were introduced to?
This whole, right, it's the 30s. We're literally on the cusp of Gandhi here, right?
Yeah.
And we've got Britain colonial powers in the house. And they make him out like they're the fucking goodies.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
Well, the British captain has a funny name. It's called
Captain Blumbard. He's not fucking Muppet. He's an fucking evil man with a gun.
It's cheeky Captain Bumburp, and he's here like, oh, terribly sorry, didn't mean to do all these things. Sorry, it's an inconvenience.
They literally make being subjugated by the British Empire a villainous trait. They're like, oh, these bloody British, always coming over here and checking up on us like an overbearing mother. Yes, that was our problem. We hated it so much. Bloody Cromwell coming over here. Stop taking such good care of us. Oh.
You're a bit nosy, you British. Keep coming around looking at stuff.
We're not teenagers. You don't want you to come into our room. It's a sovereign nation, you bloodthirsty pricks. Stop us.
Look, Willie's only concern here, her main concern is talking, trying to find out about the Maharaja's wife because he's rich and she likes money. So she's trying to be like, who the Maharaja is he married? And she's disappointed when the Maharaja is a little boy.
Or a boy-haraja, as it's also known.
Boy-haraja. Willie's very disappointed.
I will say, mouthfeel words, we talked before, words that are lovely to say, words that sound nice. Maharaja is, oh, Jesus Christ.
Good. Yeah,
I
good one.
could fall asleep to someone saying that word over and over, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh, and Short Round gets a little one-liner here saying, mate, okay, he doesn't say exactly this, but he says...
I know, be careful now. You can't do the Jar Jar or the Watto defense here. This is...
No, I can't.
You cannot.
Maybe he likes older women, and that's not a verbatim quote, but there are certain quirks in the way that Short Round says things that I feel are
so
deliberate.
basically, like, they were going to the kids and saying, like, hey, do you know that Asian kid? If you want to kind of parody how he talks, these are the words you should drop and change.
But
oh, boy.
He gets a little one-liner there. Apparently, Harrison Ford took most of the one-liners that were meant for Short Round. So Short Round had a lot more snappy quips, and there's just a little line that does have a citation that's just, Harrison Ford took a bunch of the one-liners that were intended for Short Round. He must have like heard him doing them or saw them in the script and was like, no, I'll have that, and just did all the jokes. So this was like a little bit of Short Round kind of being funny and making a quip. Like, maybe he likes older women is a kind of a one-liner little joke, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't get to do that much of that.
No, he has large portions of the movie where he's kind of seen and not heard, let's just say.
Yeah.
And can I just say now, can we all just imagine Harrison Ford now? Mm-hmm. So let's all picture him at home now in his house.
Yeah.
Sat down. Oh, look, he looks a bit grumpy, doesn't he? And there he is now, and he's threatened by a fucking 10-year-old boy doing a few jokes. So let's all have a look at him now, and let's all think this together. There he is. Big man, huh? Big
Threatened. Now, our gang are sitting down with the Prime Minister, an Indian Prime Minister talking about the thuggy cult that makes human sacrifices. Apparently the British have done away with them entirely, but the village from before have said, no, that's still what's happening. And look, around the dinner table, this big thing.
Snake surprise, yay!
Snake surprise, which is a snake with more snakes inside it. And, I mean, these Indian fellas, Kevin, are eating bugs and snakes and eyeball soup and chilled monkey brains for pudding.
It is fucking grotesque. It's worse than what if you would imagine a scene where Dennis Hopper as Bowser was eating dinner in the Mario Brothers movie or Troll 2 or something. Like, it's an other level of extra care and detail to make it as gross and horrible as possible.
The only thing I would say, and this is I would do a tiny little bit of playing devil's advocado here,
please,
is that if the goof here is that they have prepared these foods to make fun of the cliches that the Westerners will think about them in order to freak them out, and that's the understanding of what's happening here, and that's a joke, it's not laid on thick enough that everyone will understand that. And even if everyone did understand that, I think those cliches about what Indian cuisine is like have from this film have come out into culture. Like, I was reading up on, like, oh, people still think some of this shit about Indian food and Indian cuisine and Indian people. So even if this is meant to be a kind of, hey, we're tricking them by making them eat what they think we eat, it still had that same effect from just being in the film and being
there was allegedly a line that was cut where they were going to do something to that effect, and it was meant to be like Indy's meant to turn over to Willie or Short Round and say, I think they're messing with us, no self-respecting Hindu would eat meat or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel, it's one of those things where, just like with Short Round or whatever, it's something that's been presented not with like upfront malice or something like that, even though I'm sure, but like it was also not presented with any sort of consideration for like, I mean, Indian Americans, that's a voice that's not really heard a whole ton, and it's only really in recent years where you kind of started to hear a little bit more of that community vocalizing or having enough people, enough people to actually kind of raise these concerns. But it says a lot about how great Indian cuisine was when out of spite my mind was like, you're going to think about all the Indian cuisine that you've had and you've made and how great it is. Yeah. And I sat there going, do your fucking worst, mate, because I made sag paneer and it's fucking good, man.
No. Paneer.
Come on! What's that, Kevin? Are you going to the Irish Houses of Parliament? No, I'm just here in England eating my dal. That's all that's going on here, baby.
Something about chilled monkey brains for dessert feels so particularly egregious.
Twist the monkey's head open, like come on.
Yeah. And look, that was a thing that was a sticking point for a lot of people and was like, a really gross thing. And hey, I get it. It is bad. That is really bad.
And I will say, even if it wasn't, we went to a hypothetical route where it's like, this isn't India, this is like some made-up, fictionalized country or whatever it is, or these aren't meant to be any particular type of people or whatever. It's still a very upsetting scene to watch because of all the grossness. It is like genuinely fucking minging and not in a fun way.
Cartoony levels of like, yucky, eyeball soup. Come on.
Just have a man eaten by ants, CG or otherwise, and that's all I need. I'm fine. Don't eat the ants. No, have the ants eat him, you big Aegis.
If anything, that will increase my appetite. Indy is getting all flirty with Willie by talking about his researching. He's had years of field research in nocturnal activities and love rituals. Am I right? That he's a smooth customer, this guy.
Yes, so smooth. The fucking 3-point handbrake turn here where he goes from actively despising her to be like, oh, baby, come on, baby. Fucking hell.
They don't actually bang because there's an argument about, whether he's perceived her as being too easy, and he's like, I'm not too easy, and then they both go to their separate rooms.
I like when they're both counting to 5 minutes, that's kind of... Yeah. That was the closest to, like, pure chemistry I felt they had when they were in separate rooms, cutting back between them.
You'll be back here in 5 minutes, and then they're both just waiting, counting it down. And, they're trying to make each other look good so that when they do see each other again, it'll be, okay, fine. But we don't have time for that because Indy's getting garroted.
Despite Indy's awful pong and smell of want on him, he's still being attacked by baddies instead. And, one of our first, like, kind of proper, like, hey, it's a baddie and me, Indiana Jones, the hero. And then Short Round's like, quickly hang him from the neck until he's dead. We severed it. Yay!
He's spinning around on a ceiling fan, hanging down.
He's quickly turn off the fan, Short Round. Cool.
Great. Fun adventure time. So after that attack, obviously Indy's got his guard up here, so he's come into Willie's room and is very suspicious of everything. And she's like, "What? Hey, what's going on?" 'Cause she's still in flirty mode. He grabs the breasts of one of the statues in the room, and she's like,
"Secret boob passage.
I'm right here." But he pushes the boobs of the statue to reveal a hidden passage, and it says some stuff about following the path of Shiva.
So they go here now into what I'll call the baddie's base or whatever.
Secret tunnels.
They're here till the end of the movie. This is it now. And did you find the pace a bit brisk? Like, because it's 2 hours or whatever, but it's fucking relentless. Like, you're going from a big scene to big scene to big scene.
We're going from big scene to big scene to big scene, and then we spend a long time underground, and I just didn't like being there. The scenes that take place now, we're kind of underground in this spooky base.
Whereas the fact that we spent
fun.
the next kind of scene almost entirely in the company of scuttly insects of various shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I mean, so there's bits with like the roof coming down with spikes on it. And
Scolopendra giganta spotting in the background for any of the centipede fans there.
Bless you. And the skeletons like emerging from the ground. There's spikes and things. Willie's coming down to try and help, and she actually has to like reach into a hole with creepy crawlies in it, which is literally
a bushwhacker trial.
It is a bushwhacker trial from I'm a Celebrity.
By the way, random aside, if you want an exceptionally good trashy reality show, may I recommend Married at First Sight Australia.
I have been wrecked that as well.
Please watch season 4. I'll say no more.
Is it hot garbage? In a good way?
It is the most perfect hot garbage. Like when we started, it's like, oh god, episodes are an hour long. There's 27. By episode 4, and we were like, there's 27 episodes. Yeah. So
I'll bear that in mind. It seems to be always on like ITV4 or one of those ones.
It's all 4. You can get it all streaming. Okay. So yeah,
this is all a bit I'm a Celebrity, a little bit Fort Boyard.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah.
When they finally make their way down into this thuggy ceremony with all of these guys here.
Are thuggies a real thing? Because it just feels like when we're saying it, and particularly with your British accent, you're like, this kind of like thuggy thing they were doing when they had all their cars and they were revving them up and all that.
It sounds like I'm complaining to Ofcom, doesn't it? It's a bit...
Yeah, or citizens' advice or something like that, like what you can do about your neighbours or something.
Thuggy is not a good word for me to be saying with my voice. But they're all worshipping Kali.
And we see Molaram, who is the main villain, the high priestess of the Thuggies. And he's come out and he was in defence of the movie, and he said that he didn't think it was bad portrayal of the Indian culture or anything like that. He said it was just like the silly old stories that, Indian pop culture, etc. told as well. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, if your main lead's not going to come out in defence of it, like you haven't got much of a leg to stand on,
I suppose so. So he's there in like a horn helmet, ripping out a little lad's heart, who is then somehow still alive. So we've got the mysticism, the magic here.
I will say with this whole set, I don't know if you picked up on this much, because I know you're a gamer boy, set see you later boy like myself, but I know that you're more of a skate world than a lot of the other things that I'm in. But I swear,
not many ramps down here, not many rails.
No, not great ollie stuff. Although if you do a good long hand plant on the lowery cage bit as it goes all the way down, you'll get the secret videotape. I've heard that much.
Oh, right.
But what I will say is, this second half of the movie, I feel has inspired, like, not just inspired, I think it's literally laid the fucking blueprints for like 90% of like underground skull cult bases. I feel like I've played 10 games where I went into a place with a big fiery skull in the middle and kind of evil chieftain tribal elders pulling on big cranks and such. Now I know that's not exclusive to this movie, but very much the nuts and bolts and the mechanisms of it and the colours. There's a big minecart bit later on, which I'm pretty sure someone at Rare must have watched for Donkey Kong. It feels like very much a lot of this inspired a lot of video games.
I think so. Those sorts of games where you have to like mush X to do something.
Yes.
Sneak through this little hole by pressing X a bunch of times. Quick time event, that's what they call them, isn't it?
QTE, Sam.
That's when I kind of dipped out of gaming, when it all got like that. But this lad, he's had his heart ripped out. He's still alive.
It's actually called a heart yoink, I'll have you know.
Sorry for my disrespect.
And when you take it out, you have to go...
Oh, got your heart.
Oh.
Hey, not in a romantic way. Burned alive in a kind of dunked into a lava pit, and his heart, which has been ripped out, bursts into flames.
And they start talking about how their sect of Hinduism is going to take over the world as well.
Yeah.
It's quite an aggressive religion as experienced by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg.
But they've got the majority now, I think, of the special stones.
Sankara stones.
Yeah.
They're in that big skull. They're, again, how many things have you played with big glowy bits you have to remove that give the power
take it out of the thing and look at it. You know what? When the music and the tension was building up of Indy sneaking towards this kind of like big skull thing to take one of these stones and holding it and it glowing in his hand. And I had this with Star Wars Episode 2 over on Patreon. It was a little glimpse of like, I get it. And like something about the way it looked and it felt and the music and everything of this thing glowing in his hand. I enjoyed it.
Was that safe to say the movie was firing on all cylinders? Like it was selling you on what it was meant to be at that point?
It was a little glimpse of what I should have been feeling much more throughout the whole movie. You know what I mean? Like I for a second, and I can feel it. I can feel the Indiana Jones stuff. I'm in.
I feel you got that feeling once in the first episode where we covered Indy, and it was when the bit with the plane, when the plane explodes in the hangar.
Yeah.
But the fact that you got it here, was it the lone sighting of that feeling in this movie?
I mean, I enjoyed the kind of the early hijinks, but it wasn't that same feeling. But with this, there was just a coming together of cinematography, of music, of acting, of just a moment where I was like, it's Indiana Jones. And it just like, you can see my eyes when I say that, kind of like widen and go, Indiana Jones. Like, it just felt right. You know
what? Special mention for this, I think it's a big positive about this movie, is you were quite wary about there being iffy effects or anything like that. And I would say bar one or two very slight instances later,
it's better than the first one.
Maybe it's because they're in a set and like the set is very meticulously designed. Like, this is like the fucking most perfect place in the world. Everything is like down to a T.
Yeah.
And I think it looked super great. Like, and we've watched a lot of movies recently on Swirl which have not stood the test of time at all.
It's a pretty good looking movie. I think certainly better than how I felt about the first one in terms of the looks and the effects and things like that. But, just as I was feeling good about that, some scary lads grab Willie and Shorty as they're watching Indy going about his business, and there's it's a horrible underground lair full of lots of child slaves
being whipped.
Yeah. And so Indy sees this as he snuck kind of backstage into the child slavery bit. And his response is to just lob a stone at the man doing the whipping, which, you know what? There's a certain charm to that, to just be like, how am I going to fix it? Fuck it. Fuck a stone at him.
Was he anticipating the guy whipping the child going, have you got a big problem with it? Well, let he who is without sin... We've all got our demons. I happen to work 9 hours a day whipping children.
But Indy immediately kind of gets captured and lumped into jail with
I feel like there's a kind of semi-permanent state of being captured over and over again for the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of claustrophobia and darkness and kind of insidiness of this set, of this underground set. Look, it looks good, but it doesn't feel fantastic all the time, this.
So we find out how they are using their demonic ceremonies. We find out that men are being fed with the Kali blood, and it unleashes the Kali Ma, which will mean that you will be alive but a nightmare, according to Short Round. So they're kind of saying that all the big guards and stuff are kind of like mindless zombies of some sort.
Almost like a kind of possession, brainwashing, like controlled by having drunk that blood.
And that's why we need the secret stones. And they give Indy blood, he spits it out, and then it's like, right, look, we've run out of our fucking made up Indian trope. So here, where's voodoo dolls? Yeah, sure, right, yeah.
Fuck it, chug that in there as well.
It, yeah,
Who
some black magic for you as well. Sure, why not? And why not? And a little touch of the leprechaun as well. How about that as well? All it's like at the end of episode 9. I am all of the magic, and all coming together there.
So,
fucking bonkers.
Because he's been voodoo dolled, he's susceptible to having that nightmare blood poured into him, while Mola Ram chats about eliminating all other religions and ruling the world.
That is the goal of pretty much all religions, if you are playing for a religion victory in Civ 6.
Yeah. And so Indy is now in bed, freaking out and laughing because he's had the nightmare blood juice. And poor little Shorty, he's been put to work as a child slave.
Oh no, come on. Got to go back to Indiana Jones there having his little fit. It really reminds me of, did you ever eat really, really spicy chili or curry or something and have kind of like a spice nightmare? It's like
it
a
was
fish.
That. Yeah.
And you're all really sweaty.
Maybe you get that from fucking Snake Surprise and Eyeball Soup, I don't know. But yeah, it wasn't the nightmare blood, mate. It was that nightmarish food that we had at the table. Way. So he's apparently fully possessed by this now.
And you can tell because he doesn't wear his hat, which is a sign of all possessed men.
Pops his hat off. Willie's being brought out to be sacrificed. And Indy's not... He's not doing anything about it. She's been lowered down as a helpless damsel in distress into the lava pit.
I thought as well, this was really, really like good job on the director and the writing here, because while he was doing that, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, is he part of the Kali now? Is he part of the group now? Has he been brainwashed, or is he just continuing with his tradition of hating this woman and like he just wants to kill her? What is it? I don't know.
There's a mystery there. You can't really tell if it's
because George, if you wanted to kill her, I feel like you really should be cognizant of doing it, like, right?
Yeah. It's the fact that he didn't say something like, "Oh, getting hot down there, doll," as she was like being lowered into the lava. You're like, "Oh no, I think he might actually be."
Or she didn't say anything like, "Oh, I wanted a sauna, not this," or whatever the fuck they were going for.
We get someone call my agent. This is not what
I'm a singer.
I'm helpless. Indy slaps Short Round, and that's how we get the confirmation of the fucking heel turn here. That's the final straw. But Shorty, little Short Round, he has to be the one to save everyone, because his way to get Indy out of this is just to burn him a bit and say, "You're my best friend, wake up." And he's back. And he does a little wink and he's like, "I'm all right, kid."
The emotional height of the movie where they hugged and he said, "You're my best friend." Like, that was... And I felt like... I don't know if everyone feels that about Short Round or whatever, but...
There is a connection there, and it is sweet.
He is a written character. Like, he's got something going for him. And I think, it's far from the movie's most egregious thing. We can probably pick something other than what Family Guy makes fun of Indiana Jones for its biggest problem, if we all put our heads together.
Yeah. You know what? He's as sweet as a short round of pancakes, okay? And that's a nice little bond there.
And unlike Family Guy, we won't fight fire with fire by fighting the racism with a racist joke as well.
So, Indy's back, Indiana Jones theme plays, shirtless, topless Harrison Ford, who I must say has been working out.
He has been.
Looks great, looks buff.
You've been doing more than your regular amount of carpentry, I see.
Fighting off various lads.
Yeah, topless Indy versus Beefcakes is your main event for the evening. And
Great
he's saving
stuff.
kids while he's doing it. He's giving off very big, sexy dad energy in this, for sure.
Now, one of my big laughs in this, and there weren't many, I've got to say, was Mola Ram just, like, sneaking into a little trapdoor thing to get away and laughing as much, ha 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 ha, and then roll, like, he's lying down and he just rolls over into a little trapdoor thing to get away. And it's just something about how quick it happened and how... it was just very funny. It's one of those things you have to see, but just him going, ha ha ha, and then rolling into a little thing.
I got big Baron Samedi energy off of him.
Yes,
He was kind of a crude caricature, but the guy playing him was obviously having a bit of fun and was being a bit silly, like, so.
And look, they managed to finally rescue Willie, who is very much just still that damsel in distress having to be rescued here. So Indy's kind of saved the day here because all of the baddies have got beaten up and the slave kids are managing to get back at their slave owners, get freed.
There's a cool scene where all the kids run through the palace and all that.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's empowering because I think that's what the Indian people needed. They needed to see the Indian people rise up against their oppressors who are being oppressed by the British Empire. And it's and I think that the British Empire and the slave children were kind of united on that front and wanting to stop this.
You know how you think we've covered all the like problematic stuff in this film, right?
I thought we'd done it all.
We've covered all the bases here. We've addressed all the issues. You know the main strong lad who's whipping all the child slaves?
Yeah.
And that is just a white bloke in brown face.
Oh, is this?
It is, and he was in the first movie as someone else. Just a big, strong white wrestler man doing brown face with the turban on.
There you go. This is the lad. I thought you were about to say like it was like the bit where the turban gets caught in and the guy's like, "Oh, this bloody turban."
Just add an extra layer of like things that they shouldn't have really been doing in this film.
The man who was pantomiming about the day-to-day limitations and dangers of a turban was a white man with brown paint on his face.
Yes.
Alrighty.
And look.
Oh my god.
He does get to punch Indy a few times, and Indiana Jones does some great, like, grunting. When he it's good Harrison Ford grunting.
What they
right
just
there.
did was they just sampled the audio of him asking about making the movie from the press rounds from the last one. So what was it like doing it? I showed up, I was paid.
The Maharaja doing more dicking around with the voodoo doll to put Indy at a disadvantage in this fight. Willie... damsel in distress character, is free and is very supportive of Indy, and she just runs up to where the fight is happening. It's kind of like, go, Indy, and mimes doing punches, like, do this, again, punch him, get him.
More video game stuff where, like, I swear, like, River City Ransom or Double Dragon, or I know Sunset Riders, there's a lot of, like, just women who just, like, come along to be like, hey, and
go, do the thing, yeah.
Points, all right, cool.
Doesn't intervene or do anything, or, like, there would be opportunities here for Willie to, like, outsmart someone or do something extra and it's just she's just there to sell Indiana Jones, like, just be like, hey, he's great.
She's a cheerleader. That's pretty much what she is, you know.
Big strong guard gets his turban caught up in a steamroller. Said, see you later, mate, bye.
Back to Warwickshire.
Shorty burned the Maharaja to free him from Mola Ram's control, and the Maharaja then gives Shorty directions to get out of the cave thing. And with this point, I was thinking, thank fuck they're getting out of the cave thing, because I'm still not enjoying the darkness and the dreariness of this set.
It was 25 minutes by the time they got into the minecart, it was around 25 minutes of like a pretty much a non-stop continuous set piece of action of some sort or another. Like if they moved from anywhere to point A to point B, it was to continue and do more action. It's like, I heard a thing from the documentary, which was when they watched the first cut of the movie, which is a little bit longer. They both turned to each other like after half an hour and they were like, it's too fast and we have to slow it down. And this is the slowed down Temple of Doom.
Okay. It does have a lot of it's always moving, this film.
It feels like a fucking 3 hours of movie shoved into an hour 50. Like.
The minecart getting out of control and the big chase here, that is good fun.
I like the minecart bit a lot. I had the Donkey Kong Country song in my head while it was happening. It was good.
I always like when a brake breaks. You know, they're pulling the brake and the brake breaks. I like a broken brake.
I like there's a part where they like crush him horribly, their pursuers. Mm-hmm. Like he pulls up a shovel, he knocks the thing over, and then they get crushed or whatever. And then when they get crushed, Willie, Short Round, and Indy all turn around to see the crushed bodies of their victims, and they go, "Yay!"
Hey! Hey! Yeah,
big Ghost Train vibes on this. Now, I love a Ghost Train.
It's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Fucking love Have you and I been on a Ghost Train together? I swear we must have.
I don't think we ever have.
The Ghost Train at the Lincoln Christmas Market I went on to like 115 times. Fun fact, folks, there was a podcast idea I had at one point called Crazy Ghost Train, where I was going to go on every single ghost train I could in England and then like podcast on it and then do a short review afterwards.
I don't mind it as an idea, Kevin.
I love a ghost train.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what.
Oh, meet a different guest from the different places that you go to and interview and chat to them while you're doing the ghost train.
Because most people don't know is right far from the fat controllers of Sidonia or whatever, Sodor of the land of Thomas the Tank Engine. The station masters of all ghost trains I've met have all been absolutely delightful, including when I was in Blackpool Pleasure Beach once, and I will say it's my best ghost train experience ever, when a seemingly apathetic, almost Billie Eilish-esque teenager rolled her eyes as I went on the ghost train with Joe, and when we came out at the end, she jumped up and gave us an additional unexpected boo free of charge, which
wonderful
gave us
stuff.
You know what? You lured me in and you set me up and I lowered my expectations and you spooked me good and proper. Great time. I didn't think I'd be here in the pandemic. Oh God, I miss fucking ghost trains.
Ghost trains.
Oh my God, I miss them so much.
When will the restrictions be lifted on ghost trains? But you know how like there's that Hot Ones thing where they interview people and they're eating spicy food?
Yeah.
I think the idea of trying to talk to someone while being scared is really very fun.
All right, Sam, tell you what.
To have a normal chat.
When as soon as fit is safely possible, you and I will do a special edition of the mailbag on a ghost train or something like that. How does that sound?
Genuinely, really, that could be great stuff.
Unfortunately, it's only been my second time podcasting on a train in the last 12 months, but whatever.
Minecart scene's fun. Indy manages to stop the wheel with his foot, which gets really hot, and so he's got a hot foot. And he's like, oh, I need water. And then they get loads of water because the whole of the cave is trying to like flood them out, drown them out. Proper silly action stuff.
Like, why have they got all this water? Like, is this all the water?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They got some water. It's fun action. And thank fuck, we get outside on the edge of a big cliff thing.
Yeah, I never thought a jungle canyon rope bridge would be a sight for sore eyes, but here we are.
Go. Mola to the left of me, swordsman to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. And by you, I mean a rickety rope bridge. I'm stuck on this rickety rope bridge.
A simple trade, a stone for a friend. I don't know if there's any particular stone that you would trade me for, or...
Maybe like an igneous rock, you know?
What? They're so cool. You give me over... You pimp me out for some basalt? Are you fucking kidding me?
Full disclosure, I like the word igneous. It has that good mouthfeel, and I wanted an excuse to say it. I saw one and I pounced on an igneous opportunity.
I'm gonna go with an infinity stone, and I'm gonna leave it up there because it's kind of like a little bit of a gamble, isn't it? Like, you know, because there are all these different coloured gems, and I might want one in particular. You know, like Go-Go's. It's a rarity. You never know. Could be good.
A chaos emerald.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Oh, there's crocodiles underneath in the water, by the way, if you wanted to up the stakes a little bit.
I could not confirm or deny how brackish this water was. There was nothing in the documentary about it. They could be gharials, because gharials are found in India, and also as well, it was very high up, so they may have looked like big crocodiles, but they could have been little gharials and just a trick of the eyes.
Yeah, which celebrity do they look like?
Gharials? I don't know. I don't want to. No, it's because I'm a gharial. It's a bit insulting, actually.
That's me.
I felt a little bit bad about the Patton Oswalt one. That was meant as a loving, soul-trapped analogy.
So Indy's threatening to I'll drop the stones, but Mola knows that those stones will be found, but Indy won't. And we get an actual, from Indiana Jones.
You're allowed one per movie.
This is not the entirety of this, but interestingly, this film, with its violence, with its little bit of swearing, is the origin of the PG-13 rating.
Yeah, because it was PG, and then they were complaining, the critics, saying that it was ghoulish and violent and cuss words and all that, and it's no more so violent or fucking bombastic than 99% of the fare that was on offer at the time for kids.
But it fits into a kind of middle ground that was invented to satisfy this film, right?
So it took us between PG and 15s, I'm assuming, then.
I don't know how American certificates work.
Yeah, that's true, actually, because we have a completely different one, as we do in Ireland. And you know, the great thing about Ireland having its own classification system is that when we get all the DVDs from England, we'd have a little tiny sticker on the outside of the box over where your rating is, and that would just come right off, Sam. It would just come right off.
So Willie sees that Indiana Jones, his solution to this is to just chop the bridge in half, and her response, and she really, really goes for, what her character is about, is just going, "Oh my God, is he nuts?" And she's just screaming and being loud and not doing anything. Short Round says he's not nuts, he's crazy.
That's a pretty good line.
Yeah, that was one of the few lines
that he had
left on his plate.
And then Harrison's really workshopping, what if Indiana did a narration and he thought that at the end of the movie, like in Blade Runner, so the people watching the movie could follow his monologue. I don't like this kid talking. Maybe Harrison Ford was just a woke warrior, Sam, and he thought, I don't want this poor kid to have to say all this fucking shit, so I'm just going to take all his lines and then he'll have nothing to say, ergo eliminating the problem entirely.
Yeah, I reckon that's what it was.
His heart's too big, Sam.
So Mola Ram, our villain, is climbing up. The bridge has kind of collapsed, so he's kind of climbing up the edge of the bridge here. But he does get a proper kicking from Willie and Shorty. They do something. They just kick the villain a bunch of times.
Stand on his fingers. Highlight here now when Indy is about to have his heart taken. Give me that heart, boy. And where Indy Hindu-splains his own religion to him. He's like, this God wouldn't like it if you did this. And he's like, oh shit, he's got a point. It's like,
he invokes the name of Shiva, says that Mola is a traitor, and that makes the stones go all glowy.
He speaks a bit of Hindu at him as well.
Yeah, Mola catches one of the stones, it burns his hand, he falls off the bridge.
As it turns out, Hinduism and the ways of the people there, kids are natural. Just picked it up real quick, real easy. I don't want to go on about named tropes or whatever, but a common criticism is that this has got that whole white savior thing going for or whatnot.
Oh yeah,
and no much more so than the literal priests here who've been told, you don't actually understand your religion. It's not a religion of hate. It's a religion of love.
Falls to his death, eaten by crocodiles. The British Indian Army is here to shoot away the thuggy soldiers.
Fuck off. They show up.
Yay!
Right. obscure perhaps reference, but not since in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure when Nazis show up to help everyone. You're like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. And he's no Captain von Stroheim, fucking Captain Blumbart here. Oh, great. It's the British Legions
the British
here.
Army. Yay!
Kill them all. And you know what? Make sure any treasure you find, make sure that gets back to its rightful owners as well. Oh, what's that? All these slaughtered people have gifted it somehow to a monarch.
Well, speaking of treasure being returned to its rightful owners, Indy comes back to the village from the start. He's brought them the stones back, and the village is all colourful and better now already. Everything's okay. They're all happy, and they're all back with the families, all the enslaved children, and they're free. Everything's all good again. They're gathering around and celebrating, waving their hands around.
I don't want anyone who's listening to think that I'm just bitter or whatever, because Ireland, even though it got subjugated a lot by the British, we didn't have any jewels and things that you've nicked like you did from a lot of the other empire spots.
Yeah.
So I'm just being empathetic as well as outraged. And if there are any, I swear, if there are any jewels, Sam, they will be found. They will be found. Ireland's Chaos Emeralds will be returned.
I mean, maybe Indiana Jones pops over to Ireland for the next one. I don't know.
They're fucking green. Come on, obviously. Come on. Jesus.
And hey, Willie, right at the end, manages to turn things around, am I right, by saying, no, I'm going home and I'm not going on any adventures with you. But he catches her in his whip, pulls her back to him.
That's an iconic moment there, would you believe?
And they kind of are about to do a big kiss, but Short Round's elephant squirts them with water. Ha ha ha, very funny. They do kiss. All the nice villagers celebrate. The end of the film.
And then what you don't see is that elephant goes on a rampage and kills Short Round and Willie straight afterward. That's why you never see them ever again.
Never referenced by Indiana Jones in the first film, which is the future from this. So they must have just gone off to do their own thing. Look,
we're here. We're at the end.
We did it. And this was my attempt to make Cinema Swirl just have a kind of loose, fun, low stakes. Let's do a happy, fun Cinema Swirl. And let me tell you, listeners,
nice fucking job.
I'm never fucking doing that shit again. I'm never bothering with that.
Yeah, no, Sam, because in summation here, nice fucking job. Yeah. God.
I've been tripped up by my whole thing of not knowing about movies, that I didn't know that this was what was going to be happening here.
If there was another sequel that could have went in there instead of this, I swear it's going to turn out that, oh no, you forgot Face Off 2 or something like that.
Well, Hey,
Sam. Look, we talked a lot about it. It obviously had its problems, which you knew about beforehand, and were a multitude of them within. However, we've talked about a movie that's had a lot of romping action, great sets, characters. Well, why you may not love the characters, I think we can agree. You couldn't fault most of the actors, at least the ones who were playing their own race.
No,
I feel there are still positives here, and also you did specifically say you got that Indiana Jones feeling at some point.
I got the feeling for a bit. I enjoyed the opening rompy bits. I didn't like the fucking middle / most of the film, and the portrayals of Indian, the problematic shit. I feel like it's not just 2020 looking back bad. We said this at the start. It's at the time bad.
Yeah.
It is bad.
It's not as if anyone was ever cool with the Indian people being portrayed that way. It was pretty much a mean, wrong thing, pretty much,
Yeah. When I went to try and find, where this film might be available online or on streaming services.
Fuck all, it's Ghost Town for me.
But I saw that you could buy it on Sky, and it was one of the 3 Indiana Jones films, this was the one that had to have that little thing that says this contains depictions of.
Does it?
It has that little thing that they've had to add in to say that they mostly have to put on fucking Tom and Jerry cartoons, but they had to put that on this because so that. It is unavoidable.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Because I did say at the start that I had a litany of things wrong with the movie, or a historical sense that people had an issue with this movie long before anyone who I knew would have been talking about this gave 2 fiddles about whether it was racist as fuck as not.
Yes.
So here's the question. If you can somehow sidestep all of that kind of all that stuff, is it still a movie that struggles for some reason, or is it still a movie that rubs you the wrong way, even if we somehow carved out all of that nasty shit?
It wasn't that fun, right?
Because people say it's the weakest indie, even if you're like, you think that there's nothing wrong with it at all in terms of it being insensitive or whatever. People
and if we ignore the whole thing with Willie just being useless and that being the whole character and having nothing, there's nothing to her really other than actual full-on damsel in distress character.
Do you think that Crystal Skull coming out as being a much more obvious, let's all sit around a circle and piss on the rotten corpse of Indiana Jones and talk about how shit it is and this is the worst one ever by far, do you think as a result of that people just kind of by default kind of semi-supported or said it was better than it was? Because I've looked on so many Empire top 100 lists or, you know, Hot Dog's best action movies, and this still shows up like over and over and over and over and over and over again. People still do hail it, and I wonder if it's because it's now viewed as being the second worst indie movie as opposed to being the worst indie movie.
I can't really tell, but you know, I don't feel like I had as much fun with this as I did with the first one, and I didn't have that much fun with the first one.
What did you give it in terms of a wipe rating? Was it 2 or 3?
It was a 3.
3?
It was a 3.
That was, at that point, one of the lowest scores you'd ever done, I think.
Yeah, this was tricky. There were little glimpses of having fun. So this is not a nothing movie, and this is not entirely, completely derailed and destroyed by its clear problems.
Yeah, but there's still an actual movie here.
There's still a movie here. There's still stuff you can take from it. I don't really like the character of Indiana Jones, is what I've kind of realised.
Yeah, we've learned this. He's not Sam's type. He's not his friend. He is not for Sam Chaplin.
I liked him the most when he was James Bond at the start.
It does make me kind of think, though, after our recent reverse throw we did on Patreon, and I was so blown away by how they flipped so much of the Bond stuff on its head. I don't know if Harrison's too old to effectively do it now, because it'll be a different story, but I would love to see someone try and still do like what they did with Bond and maintain the heart of Indiana Jones and why people loved him and still put him in this new world and not try and change him, but try and put him in context of it a little bit or new attitudes or whatever.
Maybe it could work. Maybe Shia LaBeouf should be the one to take on that role.
Poor Shia LaBeouf. You know what? Shia LaBeouf was right when he said that them not doing the next Indiana Jones movie would not divide us. He's right. We won't be divided by that now. We won't be.
So there's many perfectly valid criticisms about this. One that I have is just that they weren't outside enough. I know he's an archaeologist and he goes into but it wasn't. I just wanted a bit more running around outside. That sounds like such a child's criticism of a film, but
it was very Tomb Raider 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy the bulk of the setting, you know. It was just a bit too kind of dingy and I don't know. I wasn't feeling it.
Having now seen 3 of the 4 movies.
Yes, technically.
And I would actually probably go as far, if you probably asked me back when I cared about Indiana Jones more, in my earlier 20s or whatever, I probably would have said that the third one's my favourite.
Okay.
We got Connery in there. It's a lighter tale. It is noticeably kind of like how Empire Strikes Back with Return of the Jedi, I felt like they're giving you some stuff to kind of make up for the darkness a little bit. There is a palpable sense of that in the third one. I do maintain that that's still a good movie. I think that's a movie that if you watched it and you really didn't like it, I would be quite shocked. I just thought I'd say as much because I don't know if Cinema Swirl, the podcast, is doing the fucking last rites of Indiana Jones here, because it really feels like it.
We can give it another 5 years and then pop back to the third one, I think.
But you gotta beat Back to the Future 3 and Ghostbusters 2 to get that chance.
Oh, I can't wait to be in my mid-30s talking about Indiana Jones. Oh, what a life I've got to look forward to. Look, I didn't have a brilliant time with this. No. So...
Come on, give me a rating then. Didn't have a good time? Just so you know, I've tried to do fucking deep level, below surface mining for some compliments and positives about the movie. So, don't fucking have a go at me now if he's going to give it a bad rating.
I had my Indiana Jones moment. I get it. I had fun at the start. The music's good. Did some good performances.
You've been clinging on to that fucking opening 5 minutes for dear life.
It's worse than the first one. I don't quite know if it's 1 star wipe territory, so I'm gonna say, tentatively, 2 star wipes.
You heard it here first.
Thank thanks for listening to another episode of Cinema Swirl. This episode was produced by Kevin, edited by me, Sam, and hey, I also did the music. If you're after more Swirl content or you want to support the show, or better yet, both, patreon.com/cinemaswirl is the place to go. On the socials, we are at cinemaswirl on Twitter, and our Facebook is facebook.com/cinemaswirl, which is also where our votes for episodes take place. If you've got anything for the mailbag, then send it on over to cinemaswirl@gmail.com. That's cinemaswirl@gmail.com. Please do keep recommending the show to your friends, leaving reviews on whatever podcast thing you use. It all helps us out. Thank you so much. Alright, see you next time.